Did you ever hear someone say the words, "Of course, when you're young, you're an idealist. But when you get older, you realize that you cannot change the world"? And isn't that a true statement? As children, all of us might have had great plans and ambitions of making this world a better place. But growing up, hearing the news, just makes us sad. I mean, only look at all the wars going on. What do we have? Iraq, Syria, Palestine, Congo, Ukraine. The list goes on and on. Social media allow us to be collectively witness on an almost real-time basis of these horrific events. It could all make us want to turn off the TV and put down the newspapers because all seems hopeless. We cannot really do anything. Now, this conviction that we cannot do much in turn leads us to disengage from the bigger questions of society. As a result, we stop spending our time and energies on finding possible solutions. And instead, we try to live our personal and family lives as good as we can. That was the situation in which I found myself a few years ago. Yes, I was eating organic food and buying fair trade products, but I remained largely undisturbed by what was really going on outside. Until I met someone who showed me that I was wrong. This man, Silvestre Buira, was a refugee from the Congo. I learned that he had lost almost his entire family. His mother, brothers and sisters, cousins, all of them died a violent death. He himself had been kidnapped and tortured for almost 2 weeks. The scars are still visible on his arms. Now, this man, if he would just sit back and give up, who would blame him? He would have every reason to be disillusioned in the way I just described myself. But this man was different. Instead of sitting back, he was active. He was hopeful and optimistic. He was working constantly and bringing people together, speaking out against the crimes of his government and rebel groups. And in this way, he was able to start a lot of initiatives, to solve local disputes, and to save many lives. Now, what was the power by which he could do that? It was the realization that he could make a choice. In fact, he explained me that exactly the murder of his family confronted him with this choice. He could have run away in hiding. He could have joined one of the many rebel groups in order to take revenge on the murderers of his family. That was what many young men around him did. But instead, he chose the most impossible of options. He chose to fight for peace in Eastern Congo. And in fact, this was a choice between two different ideas. It was either holding on to an old idea that war is inevitable and you better join the winning team, or choosing the idea that peace is possible, even in a place like Eastern Congo. And today I'd like to ask you, can we not make a similar choice? I think looking at all those wars going on, many of us might also think that war is inevitable, almost like a law of nature. And I think, can you really blame anyone for thinking this way? I don't think so. Because isn't this idea not repeated over and over again? Not only in our media and in politics, but even in our works of art, in films and in literature. Now, if this is our idea of war, then the so-called realists are right. We cannot really do much. But what if we do have a choice? What if we can adopt a different idea? I mean, do you know what you need to conduct a war? You need weapons, you need soldiers, you need supplies, You need a public relations campaign, and of course, lots and lots of money. Now, all of those things don't just happen to be there. War means an enormous military, economic, and political effort, all of which cannot do without conscious human beings taking conscious acts of choice. War is not a law of nature. War is a deliberate creation by people with an idea and a consistent effort to realize that idea. And exactly because war is a matter of ideas and choices, they are not inevitable. Why not? Because we can make a different choice, right here and right now. As long as we remain passive in the face of destructive ideas, we are part of the problem. But as soon as we embrace the idea that peace is truly possible, we become part of the solution. Ideas are something very powerful, both negatively and positively. Let's face it, wars are created by ideas of people. Ideas of hate and dreams of power and wealth. But we can choose a different idea. Those ideas are fueled by a lot of money and energy. What if you put the same amount of energy and creativity in these other ideas? Like peace, like equality, free and open societies, and human rights for all. I mean, do we even realize that everything around us has been created by nothing more than just an idea? Even many beautiful things and useful things, like the chairs that you sit on, the mobile phones in your pocket, the old factory where we are now. Everything started by someone having an idea. And many ideas were thought to be ridiculous when they were first expressed, like flying in the air or talking to someone thousands of miles away. But eventually they came true. And I don't know why this wouldn't work for the idea of peace. It's like John Lennon, who said many years ago, war is over if you want it. In other words, war is a state of mind. War is an idea. We can choose to adopt a different idea. It's an act of choice. Together with Sylvester Buira, who I'm happy to say is among us today as well, and some other friends, we've now started the initiative, the Hague Peace Project, as a result of the idea that peace is possible. Together with local journalists in conflict areas, we like to gather information and educate people and mobilize governments in order to take action. And I strongly believe that we can make a difference. I also believe that you can make a difference too. Because these ideas, like peace, they need people to believe in them and constantly and consciously work to achieve these goals. So let's take the first step today, right here and right now, to bring your own ideas to life. Just find this idea inside yourself that you really like very much. Something that you really wish to come true. And I'm quite sure you will immediately hear that little voice in the back of your head saying, it's not realistic. It's a fairy tale. It's probably not possible. Just push that little voice aside and say, no matter what, it is possible. Then imagine yourself 5 or 10 years from now realizing exactly that idea. And then think about tomorrow. What is the first step that you're going to take? Because there's a lot of things you can do starting from tomorrow. You can start by informing yourself about one of the many problems in our society. You can also associate yourself with one of the many already existing good ideas, becoming a volunteer somewhere. Or just start a conversation with someone else about this thing that you would really like to change. It's with these small steps that every big change starts. Never let anyone tell you that changing the world is not possible, because it is. And you are all the ones who can change it. Thank you very much.